Krysta Gibson, the host of Keeping It Real and also the publisher of NewSpiritJournal.com. This show is all about keeping spirituality grounded, keeping it real, bringing it into our everyday lives. And I can't think of anything that's more grounded or more part of our everyday lives than the concept of home and how we can bring spirituality into the home. And you know, it seems these days that homelessness is on the rise. It also seems that, especially in larger cities, it's becoming more and more unaffordable for first-time home buyers, for people to get into the market. Seems like you have to be above average income to even be able to buy a home. And there's just a lot going on around this whole concept of home. So I invited Marie Mattson, who is a spiritually oriented realtor, to join us today. She's with Remax Realty. And we're going to discuss this whole concept of home, and she's also going to help us out with some ideas about buying a home and also about how to work with a realtor. So let's talk to Marie and see what she can share with us. Hi, Marie. I'm so glad you could be here today.
Hi, Krysta. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
You know, I was remembering the first time I met you was at one of our Good Company lunches, and you were the listing agent, I think, on the home that Martha Norwalk, who was one of my guests a while back, she bought the house. And I remember when we introduced ourselves, you said, well, I'm Marie Mattson, and I'm a realtor, but I don't do anything spiritual. And we were all like, no, that's so spiritual. Don't say that.
And I think my philosophy has changed. I guess I didn't think of it as spiritual because I was meeting a lot of people that were psychics and intuitives and did all these wonderful things. But now truly, you know, I realize that your home is the place where your soul wants to be.
Right.
So it's really super important to find the right place.
Yeah, it's kind of the basis. If your home life is unhappy or if you're not living in the right place, you know, how can you go out into the world and do your thing, whatever your thing might be?
Exactly.
So you work a lot with first-time home buyers and people who have bought before. You know, kind of talk to us about like what's going on now and what might be some good ideas for people who want to own their own home.
So right now in our area, the beautiful today Pacific Northwest, it seems like there's a lot of homes that are receiving multiple offers. There's more buyers currently than there are homes on the market. So right now, people really need to be prepared. They need to find a lender that they trust, that they really think is looking out for their best interest also. Because sometimes I see people that qualify for more than they're really comfortable with. And to me, it's really important. You do not want to spend every dime you make on a house, even if you do qualify, and never be able to go to have a hamburger for dinner at some evening out. So to me, it's really important to stay in your comfort level. And with multiple offers, a lot of times people are getting into this, I have to win. Well, you're not winning if you're paying more for the house than you can really truly afford.
I think there's a term for it. What is it? House
poor.
That's it, that your house poor. And I have been, not recently, but I have been to new homes that people I knew bought, and you go in and there's like hardly any furniture and hardly anything because they can't afford anything because everything they have is going towards just buying the home. So that's really good advice.
To me, you have to have a life too. Your home is part of your life, but you have to be able to have other things too.
Well, and you recently, because I think this is really interesting too, is that as a realtor, you just went through buying a new home and moving.
I did. And, you know, I think every professional should have to go through the buying, selling process themselves. Because as we advise clients, it sounds really easy. You know, oh, you're going to sell your house and you're going to buy another house. But the packing up, the moving, the getting ready is a lot more work. So yeah, we did. We just bought a house. We had our home that we raised children in, and now we found a home that our souls are happy at with a little bit of acreage and property for my horse and that kind of stuff.
So did you learn anything through that process that you feel you can now share with your clients? Maybe something you knew but didn't know that you knew as deeply once you went through the process yourself?
That is probably going to be a little more stressful than you anticipate.
Okay, yeah.
But basically, to me, the right house comes along at the right time for the right person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people forget that as they look at houses. They don't realize that if they don't get one, a better house is going to be there for them.
Mm-hmm.
The right house is there for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do see that on a regular basis. You know, people will lose out on a house. And I usually say, I think a better house is coming along. And I don't know how many phone calls I've gotten after the fact that you're right. You're right. We did find the right house for us.
Exactly. And in this market especially, isn't it important for people? I mean, it's important to have patience anyway, but isn't it important in this market to have enough patience to wait for the right house if it doesn't seem to be there? Like you say, they get caught up in the winning. I have to win the bid instead of, is this really my right house?
You know, it really is. I've got some people that we've been looking for some time. We're hoping that the spring market, you know, the little bit more inventory will break loose.
Right.
But they really understand, you know, it's not in their benefit at all to buy the wrong house and then be unhappy. And I'm not the realtor that wants that phone call after the fact saying, I made a mistake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I want them to be happy.
Right, exactly. So when you show somebody a house, what kind of, how do you get a sense, and do you use your intuition somewhat too? Like matching up people in houses? Do you kind of...
It is kind of like a dating service.
That's what I'm thinking.
You know, it is. As you get to know people and you work with them, you know, I tell them, please tell me what you love about this house and what you hate about this house, because it really helps give me a good feel for what's going to work for them. And sometimes they completely surprise me and go for something totally different. But sometimes you just walk in and you just know. And sometimes they just know.
Right, right. They just
and then I've had other
it.
homes we've walked into that they said, no way, no how. And I've even had a few people go, I've got a weird feeling in this house, which I know you're going to be talking to the ghost lady later.
I am.
So I have had people that have had weird feelings, and it's like, nope, this isn't the right house.
And they just want to turn around and walk out.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which you can't blame them if there's some kind of a negative feeling that they're picking up or whatever. And now some realtors try to, and I doubt very seriously that you're one of them, but I know some realtors will try to talk somebody into a house.
So someone that mentored me when I first started in real estate said something that has stuck with me forever. And she said, I have talked more people out of buying a home than I've ever considered talking into buying a home. Because when they walk in, you know, we do this on a daily basis.
Right.
When they walk into a home, it's exciting, it's new, it's this, you know, all these different things. And for us, we're used to seeing this. So maybe we're not so dazzled. So I point out the things that I see that might be issues.
Good for you.
You know, well, they need to know that.
Right.
And they need to know it sooner or later. They can override me and say, oh no, I can make this work. And that's fine, as long as I know they know it.
Right, and you feel good about that. The other thing that I've often thought has to be interesting as a realtor is that, you know, unless a house is empty, you are actually going into somebody else's home. And what that must feel like in terms of not invading their privacy, because they obviously want you there because they want to sell their house, but there's got to also be a whole piece of that gets involved. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, whoever's currently living there has set up a certain kind of energy in the home that could be quite different with your client.
It could be. And so the client really has to picture themselves in this home, and hopefully the sellers have put enough stuff away that it makes it pretty neutral.
Right.
But you're right. Some homes just have different energy. I've walked into homes that have a wonderful, wonderful feel, and other homes that, you know, they don't start out with a wonderful feel. Maybe they have the potential.
Right.
Depending on what the buyer wants to do.
Right. And you have sometimes probably have to really work with the seller, I would imagine, to get them to get the house showable in terms of kind of trying to get as neutral as you can.
You're right. And it really, there's some sellers that are fairly easily led, and others have a very strong opinion about, I love my house this way, and this is the way we're going to show it. Just because they love the house that way doesn't mean that the general public is going to think that's appealing.
Right, exactly. So you must do a lot of teaching.
It was funny. One time a client said to me, they said, you're kind of a counselor too.
Yes.
And I thought, you're right. I mean, it is. It's all about counseling and educating so people can make informed decisions. It sort of is.
And there is very much a soul level thing, because, I'm all about keeping spirituality, making it practical. And there's definitely a soul thing going on with where you live, because especially if you're buying a home, the idea is, unless you're flipping it, or, I know some people buy and their intention is to be there a couple of years and they're going to move on and keep going up and up. But for many people, this is going to be their home for 20, 30 years. And so that brings out that whole soul purpose thing, and how is the home going to support them in being who they want to be, whether it's raising kids or growing older,
exactly.
Whatever.
Exactly. And it's got to be someplace that you really feel happy in. And it takes some time. And, you can't just walk through an open house with 20 other people and go, wow, this is the place. I mean, to me, you really need to take your time. And unfortunately, in this market, it's hard to take that time, but maybe see the house more than once, so that you have a really good feel that I'm going to be happy here.
Right. Yeah, you're making such a huge purchase. To only go once and just make the decision on once just doesn't make sense. So what are some tips? Let's say somebody watching this really hasn't worked with a realtor, or maybe they have, and maybe they haven't always had the best of experiences. What are some tips that you can give people about a good way to work with a realtor to help you, to support them?
Well, basically, you need to interview them. And make sure it's somebody that you're comfortable with. You want somebody that you really truly feel like is going to have your best interest at heart. There's a real estate for everyone. There's some that are 18. There's some that are 85. There's a whole spectrum. Find someone you're comfortable with, because this is really going to be a relationship that's going to go on for a little while. There's not just the finding the house and getting the contract accepted. There's an inspection, and then you negotiate on the inspection. And so you really truly want someone that's going to have your back.
Be in your corner. And somebody I would think could also help you with the financing piece, as far as somebody who works with some people who have some good financial information to help you with the loan piece.
Exactly. All of us have lenders that we work with that we trust. And of course, I only refer lenders that I have seen do a good job. And so I also am happy to look over any good faith estimates, anything like that from the lender, to say this does look standard, or, I've had a few times where it's like, this looks like maybe you're paying a little more than I think you should.
Right.
And we'll talk about that. The other thing is, you want a real estate agent that works well with other agents, too, because part of this whole thing is getting your contract accepted. And, if you come in and insult the other agent, it's not going to do you any good as far as on your negotiations. And I hear this all the time. The other agent called and beat me up over price and insulted the house. Well, why would they accept that offer?
Right, exactly. That didn't help anything.
No.
So do you have any like a choice story you could tell or something about, working with somebody or a particular house?
I have a choice story.
Yeah.
It's from a few years ago. Really nice couple. We were looking for a home, and we found a house, and it was in the neighborhood she had grown up in. She loved it. The house needed a lot of work, and I pointed this out, but to her, it was the perfect location. And they made an offer, and they got beat out, and she called me crying, and she was so upset. And I said, once again, it goes back to, the right house is out there. We'll find it. Maybe it's not even on the market yet. Within 2 weeks, we had them in contract on another house. And they were thrilled. At Christmas time, I got a photo of their Christmas tree in their living room, and she said, "You're right. The first house was not the right house. We've got the best house for us." And it just felt good, just making that match.
Right.
So I think that was, bottom line, it really did reinforce to me that sometimes it takes a little time because it maybe not even on the market yet. But the right house is there.
And I would imagine that you've had to learn how to speak up because, like if somebody's all enamored, let's say, with a place and really thinks it is the best place for them, but you're really getting strongly the sense that it's not, or the loan deal isn't as good as it could be, you've had to learn how to speak up and be nice about it, but say, yoo-hoo, need you to look at this,
I do, and I always feel the need to be honest. And like I said, they can always override me.
Right,
it's
exactly.
their house. They have to live there.
Right.
But at least I want them to know what I'm seeing.
Right, right.
And I do speak up. But the other thing is, too, it's not my choice. The house may not even be something I would ever choose because it's just not my taste.
Right, right.
But if it's their taste and they know the pros and cons, then go for it. If that's going to be the place they're happy at.
Then support them in it.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
In a whole different tact, I wanted to just briefly get into one of your hobbies, which is you have horses, or a horse.
I have a horse currently.
You do Snohomish search and rescue. So tell us a little about that. I thought that's fascinating.
I do search and rescue for King and Snohomish County. It gives my horse this wonderful job. When the sheriff's department calls in our unit, we go in and we can either do, we look for lost hikers, lost children, evidence searches for them, all kinds of different things. And it's very interesting and very rewarding. So I actually am going to, my horse is currently getting a little bit older with some arthritis issues, so I'm going to be looking for another search and rescue horse. But the other thing is we can do also is we can go in on ground missions. We look for Alzheimer's walkaways. There's all kinds of different things we get to do, and it is very interesting and rewarding. I'll bet
it is, and especially if you find somebody who's lost or help them get out of a really negative situation. I know you told me that when you sometimes you go on practice runs where you spend the night and take your horse and everything, so that, because it makes sense. I mean, you need to know how to be outside and spend the night if you have to spend the night.
We had training last weekend, and of course it was rainy and cold and miserable, and but that's the conditions you're most likely going to be out in.
That's right.
So,
or snow.
Right, and people don't get lost on beautiful, nice days at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, right? It's 8 o'clock at night that the phone call comes in when it's cold and miserable and they're going to face the potential of staying out all night.
Right, exactly. Well, that's just fascinating. You're truly a fascinating Renaissance woman, I think.
Oh, well, thank you, Krysta. And I have to say that the New Spirit Journal and Good Company has been incredible for me. I've learned so much and developed some friendships that were just incredible.
Yeah, those lunches are really great. And just for anybody watching who doesn't know, if they go to newspiritjournal.com, there's a Good Company tab, and we have a lunch every month in Monroe, which is the one you generally come to, and then we have another one once a month at East West Bookshop in Seattle, so they can look that up, and that would be a great way if they wanted to meet you and talk to you in person. So is there anything else that you want to say about either real estate or anything I didn't ask you?
I think right now in the real estate market, what I like to tell buyers is set your line in the sand. Just when a house comes on the market and you go look at it and decide that you want to make an offer on it, get in your mind what you're actually willing to pay for this house. And don't get pushed up over that level. I've seen some that have gone for $100,000 over the list price. And also, too, people are disappointed when they lose out, but just remember the right place comes along.
Right. If you lose out, it wasn't your house anyway. It was somebody else's.
Exactly.
And it is difficult, I think, in anything in life. That's hard, whether it's a job or a house or a relationship or a dress, whatever that you really wanted, and then you didn't get it. It is difficult to say, wait a minute, it wasn't mine, or I would have gotten it. There's something better down the road for me. And I think in anything in life, that's a really important thing to remember.
You're exactly right. And with a lot of houses, there's this feeling of predestiny, that it's just waiting for the right person to come along. So sometimes it just feels like it's fated.
Right.
This house is, sometimes I see houses that haven't sold and I can't believe it.
Right.
And all of a sudden the right buyer comes along and it's like it waited for that person.
Right. That's wild.
So.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. You said a lot of really wonderful things. And now, how can people get in touch with you if they want to? Your website is mariemattson.com.
Right, and my email is just marie@mariemattson.com. Feel free to contact me, and my phone number is on my website.
Right.
So I would love to chat, and I'm happy to just consult also. I'm sure you have a lot of viewers that aren't even in our area.
Right.
So if somebody's got questions, I'm happy to just chat with them.
Right, yeah, they don't have to be in the process of buying a home or selling a home, but just, you're wide open to talking and helping people out, like you say, from wherever, because, we have viewers all over the place. So, well, thank you so much, Marie. I wish you the wonderful day, and thank you for spending some time with us.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Krysta. Have a good afternoon.
I'm so glad that Marie could stop by for a little while. That was all very interesting. And one of the things that we didn't really talk about is the people who are kind of like turtles, and they take their homes with them wherever they are. It doesn't really matter if they're in a yurt or a tent or a physical structure or wherever, or a hotel room. They're home wherever they are. And the whole saying, home is where the heart is. So it's also true that no matter where you are, it can be your home. So over and beyond finding the exact right place. And the other thing I wanted to talk about briefly, which we did mention, is this whole concept of when things don't work out the way you think they should, whether it's a job, a relationship, or money, or whatever. We've all had it happen where we thought things were going to happen a certain way and they didn't. And then what do? And then later finding out that it worked out perfectly. And to remember that and don't give up hope. And a lot of people these days talk to me and they are feeling lacking in hope. They look at the political situation, the world situation, and they just say, should we give up hope at this point? And I'm saying, no, don't ever give up hope. And based on that, I decided to put together an anthology. And I put a call out to writers and got a lot of great articles in. And I was able to publish 31 of them in a book that I'm calling The Book of Hope. And it's 31 true stories from people who had difficulties of various kinds and they didn't give up. Some of them had cancer, some had HIV, some were coming out as gay to their family, others had depression, anxiety, just a multitude, and some of them had numerous issues all at the same time. And they tell the story of what was happening, and then they tell the story of how they came out on the other side. So the book is full of stories of hope that you can relate to. And there's a reason why support groups work. And this book can be your own personal support group that you can get to know these people. Truthfully, I've read several of the stories way more than once, and each time I am inspired by them. And the book is available at Amazon, and it will be in other bookstores, so check with your bookstore. And if you ever feel like you want to give up and you want to give up hope, maybe pull out the copy of this book and read these stories and go, wow, if they could hang in there, so can I. So thank you for being here. I look forward to seeing you again on the next show. And remember, in the meantime, to ground your spirituality into your everyday life and keep it real.